Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Dale Keown Day and that is why we're looking at the latest installment of his early 90s run on The Incredible Hulk. This is issue 373, cover dated September 1990. Before we talk about this comic though, here at Big Baby Reviews, we're on the road to 250 subs. I do want to thank, we're hovering in around 160 subs right now. All of you out there, thank you so much for subscribing. I really do appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying all the videos. But you are basically just 11% of the viewership. Another whopping 89% checked out the analytics, are watching the videos, but are not subscribed. So, you know, if even a small portion of you guys could find it in your heart to, you know, like the video, subscribe to the channel, that helps us a lot, helps build numbers, helps put us out there also, and helps grow the channel. And helps fuel the videos, obviously, that we present here each and every day. This is a daily video channel, and you know, you've come to expect a daily video, and I will deliver that. As long as the channel keeps growing, there's no reason for me not to. So thank you for that. I appreciate it, all of you out there who are watching. And without further ado, and less shilling and more, I guess, reviewing, we're going to look at this comic here, starting with this cover here. Listen, it's Dale Keown again, being inked by McLeod. On this particular cover, I feel like either at this point Dale Keown has seen you know, his work in print with the other inkers and maybe has adjusted his style a little bit, maybe putting in a little bit more detail so that some of that detail finds its way onto the printed page. I'm just guessing here. It seems like on this cover the inker was a little more faithful to what I would typically, I don't know what you'd call it, but typical Dale Keown style hatching. Maybe the line's a little thicker than it would be with Dale Keown, but we're well on our way slowly but surely towards the pit style that, you know, I really enjoy. Even though obviously a lot of people say it's overblown and extreme. Well, that's the time period and that's when I grew up in comics and that's what we liked. You know, for 10 to 12 to 13-year-olds, that was really cool stuff, you know, for that period. But the cover itself, you know, refers to the end of the comic. When we get there, I'll point that out. But just not a very evocative cover. Not that it's badly drawn or anything, but as a kid, not something that would have attracted me specifically to this Hulk comic. There are many other Hulk covers way better than this. Hulk is a, you know, strong dynamic character, so I feel like the covers should, you know, portray that as much as possible. Not that you always have to. You know, you can go kind of out of left field with certain covers and do something that's fun and exciting. In this case, I don't think necessarily that's what's going on here. This is, I will warn you, to me, this is a pretty boring and pedestrian comic. Mostly going to focus on the art because just a lot of things I like less about this comic than things I like about it. So without further ado, we're going to open it up and I'll explain why. So we're going to start with the credits real quick. Peter David, once again, is the writer. Dale Keown is the penciler. Now, the inker has changed. This is Sam De La Rosa. We've got Joe Rosen doing the lettering and Glynis Oliver doing colorist duties. So right off the bat, I feel like Sam De La Rosa does... it does change things a little bit here, but not everywhere, right? So there's certain pages, like this is a good example, or certain illustrations, I should say. This splash page here is moving us closer towards that more extreme Dale Keown style, that more image Dale Keown style. So I'm wondering, is it because Sam De La Rosa is being a little more faithful to the pencils, or again, is Dale Keown maybe adding a bit more to make sure more of his style of detail finds its way on the page? So I feel like it goes in and out. Some pages are very Dale Keown, like this one here. They look great. The hatching right here around the cheekbone and down here below the lip and stuff. Over here, I'm seeing a lot of signs of Dale Keown, but obviously if he did that in the pencils, the inker lays down his line on top, and obviously he could change the character of the line, maybe more of the inkers than the pencilers, right? Depending on how close and faithful the inker's being or not being. But this is a good example of, you know, really cool Dale Keown art that maybe is getting us closer to what he was doing in Dragon Ring, which he was doing before the Incredible Hulk. And now if you turn the page, this is where I feel apart maybe from this illustration here and this one here, we're getting pretty Marvel house style 80s looking comic. Again, this could have been drawn by a lot of these, you know, the inking and stuff looks like how you would ink John Byrne. So I feel a lot of these inkers inking over Dale Keown are really pushing in that John Byrne direction. There is that influence that I've talked about in his art. So I guess that's their solution to it. It's like, well, this guy draws kind of like John Byrne, so I'll ink it as if it's John Byrne. And that's, you know, one of the things I don't like about it, because yeah, some parts end up looking way too much like John Byrne and not enough like Dale Keown, right? Like this first page, the splash page, which was awesome. So I'm trying to point out, again, a lot of this fairly pedestrian. Bruce Banner, I talked about last issue, how he's super ripped. You know, does that have to do with the skin that we're going to see later on? You know, I don't remember. I don't read these because I find them extremely boring, to be honest. Here's a sequence where, again, it's very pedestrian. I know in opposition to the Hulk action, you maybe want the Bruce Banner action to be a little more low-key. Maybe that's the reason why it was done this way here. But I do feel like this page, him, you know, stealing the motorcycle and running off with the girl here, could have been made a little bit more interesting. You know, even though it's not the Hulk, it is a very dynamic, action-oriented moment. So I feel like the art could have evoked that a little bit more. So, you know, we've got more stuff going on here. We've got this B story here is with Rick Jones, I believe, running off here, running away from the police. Very odd. Peter David often had these kind of B and C stories running along throughout that, you know, sometimes take a lot of issues to kind of come to the fore. So yeah, another, you know, kind of policing, pretty pedestrian, and then we discover this kind of skin that I think, you know, basically the idea is that through these weird different transformations that are going on with the Hulk now, all the different versions kind of warring with themselves. That's been going on the last few issues. So there was a Hulk transformation where I guess he busted out of Banner's skin, which is kind of a cool idea. I know a few years ago, I mean, it could be already a few 10, 15 years ago, but there was a Hulk run where they kind of focused more on the horror aspect of the Hulk and the body horror and stuff like that. So that would have fit right in. Maybe they did something like that. I never read that run. It looks interesting though. But here we get kind of a more of a PG version of that, I guess. But these were the kind of things when I was a kid and I would, you know, before I started collecting seriously, but I would read other people's comics and stuff. This is the kind of stuff that would kind of jump out at me because as a kid, you know, you've probably watched mainstream television and movies and stuff and haven't been exposed to crazy wild ideas or offbeat ideas. And comics was kind of that, where I would just discover ideas I hadn't encountered in other forms of media, whether it was TV or movies or anything like that. And this is kind of one of them, you know. I know later on this, I'm sure this has been in tons of movies and stuff, but like comics to me as a kid was just, I would find out things I wouldn't find out anywhere else, or be confronted with certain concepts and ideas that were just odd or weird, right? Because of the context itself. Like even though these are mainstream comics, you know, there's always kind of an outsider quality in the creation of this, because it is, no matter to what level you think the important this form of art is, specifically at the mainstream level, there are creatives behind it who are creating it, and you know, to varying degrees are putting, you know, time and effort into it, and also their ideas about the world, however obvious or not, again, in a run on mainstream comics. So encountering some of those ideas was very interesting. Back to the comic. So I thought this page was pretty cool, the way the coloring works. Definitely, you know something's changed. You don't get such a shooterish layout with lots of panels and mid shots, right? You just get long kind of horizontals and then kind of a half splash here. Good angle looking down on the house with the tanks out front menacingly, lighting up the place, and that's, you know, where all this yellow lighting comes from here. Very cool page. Now it gets back to being a little bit pedestrian, but Dale Keown's working in close to the full, you know, vertical panel, the 90s vertical panel. You know, we know Tom McFarlane kind of popularized it. Rob Liefeld used it. Eric Larson, you know, is kind of a 90s trope to use it, and not knocking it. Done well, vertical panels can be very cool. And I would say that most of the time, at least McFarlane and Larson pretty much pulled it off with most of those panels. And I think Dale Keown does a good job here, even though they're not fully, you know, super long vertical 90s panels. But we're getting closer to that. Doc Samson, I do not like this costume design. It's just very dated, I feel. It looks very early 80s. I don't know. Is this a John Byrne design? Just do not like this at all. Don't know where the inspiration comes from. If anyone knows, is this like from something? I know sometimes characters have been, you know, based on things in movies or other forms of media. But yeah, that one's just an odd choice that, you know, again, super dated. I prefer his original costume, where I find it's kind of a mix of, I guess I would describe it as a mix between Tarzan and Flash Gordon. That's kind of how I see it. And I do feel it does maybe, you know, not that he's a super important iconic character, but it does at least have the feel of a more iconic kind of classic costume, timeless once again. This is a great iconic shot, not quite a full splash, not quite yet an image splash, but I mean, how great is that? You know, the inking, again, is a little more Marvel, but just the composition, the layout is pure Dale Keown. Very good illustrator. Everything's, in the proper perspective. The muscles, he will exaggerate them more, but clearly he's got a very good handle on, musculature and the anatomy of the human body, and showing it off here. I like this, this smart idea here of like putting up, well, in the story, obviously who knows if the writer actually asked for these types of lights here, but, he's worked them in and used them as kind of a cool lighting effect here where you can kind of, have this tank pop out because of the black behind it and also give that sense of light and also a sense of excitement and dynamism with that kind of perspective. I don't know what you call that, perspective driven feathering within, there's like a vanishing point somewhere. And I don't even think, I feel like KEOWN would be pretty precise. So it's around here somewhere. And just that fanning kind of thing creates a lot of dynamics. And obviously with the perspective of everything else, it just really works. You've got kind of a triangular thing going here overall. So panels get bigger action, right, with the Hulk and Doc Samson. And then we get some pages once again that start to look more like a John Byrne. I almost feel like this is pretty close to a John Byrne lady face. I've talked about that. Again, the Byrne influence is obvious on KEOWN. It'll become less obvious as his style becomes more kind of extreme in the 90s. You can't just say extreme, you have to go extreme. I love this with the uplighting, the way it's done here, even though it's a small shot of the Hulk, it's very cool. Almost an Art Adams kind of quality to it. And this sequence is kind of funny, I guess. So a military man throws a grenade in the Hulk's mouth and it gets stuck there. And this is the gray Hulk, not the green Hulk, so he's not quite as strong. And he's thinking maybe this will like actually blow his head off, right? Lobotomy all over the street is what he calls it. So he actually succeeds in spitting it out and it blows up in his face. And, he's got his hands covered in his face. Oh my God, my eyes, and Doc Samson pulls in. And this is just a very good panel, sucker. So obviously didn't hurt him. And he starts beating the crap out of Doc Samson. This panel I just think is great because that peekaboo kind of effect that they got here. I don't even know if you need the lines. They were added in, or if Dale KEOWN did it, or editorial, whatever. I don't think you need them, but they don't annoy me necessarily. I think the effect would be the body language and the way the hands are positioned is so well done that you get the movement. There's this principle in comics that sometimes you can animate stuff. So like it's almost like the hands are, two frames of an animation, right? So he was clever in having one hand kind of halfway through the motion of doing the peekaboo and then the other hand kind of fully out there. Am I doing that in frame? So one hand is kind of like this, right? This one on this side, and then the other one's kind of fully out there. And in our brain that kind of, fills in the blanks and makes us see the movement, even though these are static images, right? So again, just a great panel. Don't think the lines were necessary. Don't think it hurts it either, but, that's my opinion on that. Very John Byrne panel here. So this is an example where I would say the inker's thinking, oh yeah, this is a John Byrne panel, and I'm going to ink it like a John Byrne panel, and that's why it ends up looking like a John Byrne panel. Just the way he handles Doc Samson here is very disrespectful. Just overall, very disrespectful. And then again, storytelling becomes a little boring. Not that interesting. The only interesting thing on this page, this panel here, I think, because of this, what I would call Liefeld hatching. I don't know if Dale KEOWN's looking at Liefeld or Liefeld's looking at Dale KEOWN, but this widely spaced kind of hatching here, to me, definitely a hallmark of Rob Liefeld, so kind of strange to see it here at this level, although it is consistent with some of the hatching that we'll get later on with Dale KEOWN, again, probably near the end of the Hulk run, and when he starts off on Pitt. And this sequence here, a lot of dialogue, I'm not against there being dialogue, but I just feel like this is just a bit too much for a page. But I do kind of like there's something Kirby-esque about the way this ends, right? And the panel's getting smaller and smaller. And this small panel here, there's just like, I think there's also the fact that this reminds me of that panel. I'm not quite sure if it's in Forever People. I think it's in Forever People. But the last issue of Forever People, you have like Darkseid just kind of laughing at the end there. I don't know if this is an homage to that or a ripoff or whatever, but it just really reminds me of that. And again, kind of pushes that idea in my brain that this is a Kirby kind of last page sequence here. With Kirby, I always felt maybe sometimes he got ahead of himself and he had to finish the story pretty quickly. I feel, at least with Forever People, that was literally, excuse me, what happened, because you know, that was the last issue, was editorially mandated, and I think he was actually drawing the issue when he found out it would be the last. So yeah, you kind of have to cut corners and have things stop short very quickly. So off subject, but yeah, love Kirby. So that was the Incredible Hulk 373. Thoughts, concerns, questions, comments, feel free to do so below. You know how that works, right? We are on the road to 250 subs. So once again, if you're watching the videos and you're not subscribed, excuse me, I would certainly appreciate if you did. It helps us grow and helps get the channel out there. Hope everyone out there has a great day.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13. 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.